Irreverent, entertaining, cool. You're listening to LA Talk Radio.
You're listening to Sam in the Morning with Tori, only on LA Talk Radio.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to the show. Today is Thursday, January 5th. We're back with you. Tori's still out until next week, and I'm joined once again by Leah Pelka. Hi, Leah.
Hi, Samsky. Good morning.
I always love when you come here because you're so bright and happy all the time.
Aww.
And that's a good thing, right?
Thanks, Samsky.
Yeah,
I just thought about this morning on the way in. I was like, getting up in the morning and driving here is probably like my favorite thing.
Really?
It's like my favorite way to wake up.
So we'll invite you a lot then.
I can't even. No, it's like my favorite way to wake up. I'm like, I know Samsky's going to be amazing today.
Thank you, Leah.
You're welcome,
but no,
honey.
it's fun. That's why I made it like what I do is like I get up in the morning and do radio,
Follow your passion, just like we talked about yesterday.
Exactly, and that's, we're going to talk a lot about that too, about making our lives better today with our special guest. Dr. Sam Alibrando, welcome to the show, sir.
It's great to be here.
Thank you for joining us.
By the way, you guys are having too much fun.
We're having too much fun, so we figured we'd bring you into the conversation
and
it was
be a
very
little
hard,
polite, right? He's eager to talk, apparently a person who has a lot to say. Thank you for joining us.
It's great to be here.
You're a doctor of what, really?
Psychology.
Doctor of psychology. So this is something I guess this is something that's what you do.
Yes, I'm one of those people. I do both clinical, so I see clients, right?
Okay.
But I also do organizational, so I also work with companies and organizations, helping them with their leadership, emotional intelligence, team building. So,
so companies invest in that, so their workers will be more
and more. They're doing that because they're starting to see that there's a real, true return on investment. Most of the problems that companies face often are the how the people getting along with each other and getting in the way of each other and such. So the getting people in the right place, hiring the right people, all those issues, the people stuff is what really makes organizations work.
Wow, very cool. And you work with individuals too?
Yes.
I see. How long have you been doing
in Pasadena?
This?
Yeah.
Really? And we'll talk about that and everything. Yeah. How long have you been in psychology now?
Oh, gosh, I don't want to date myself.
Really? Okay. So decades,
right?
I
wrote my doctoral thesis on one of the first Macs. Let me just put it that way.
Wow. So we're talking early 80s is when you wrote it.
Yeah, well, don't say
that. Well, I know.
Now you're meddling.
It's okay. He looks like a young man to me. You look like you still have a lot of energy.
I got energy.
A lot of life in you. So is there an area in psychology that you chose to focus on?
Well, my book is in the area of emotional intelligence.
Okay.
And so that's I have a passion about that, which is how to relate to ourselves and relate to others better.
Right. And I remember this term, wasn't it coined like in the 90s when that book came out?
It was in the mid-80s. Originally it came out of academia, so the people in MIT. Originally, intelligence was always seen as either being analytic skills, like math, and verbal skills. And in the 80s, they began to see, no, we're more complex than that. And there's one saying, is not how smart you are, it's how you are smart.
Okay.
I like it.
And so they came up with different areas of intelligence. Spatial intelligence, common sense. And one of the ones they came up with was what they called social intelligence and personal intelligence, and then they merged them into emotional intelligence.
Oh, wow. Very
interesting. How aware are you of yourself, how in control of yourself, how regulated you are, how well can you interact with other people and influence people, and then also how well do you understand other people.
Like empathy?
Empathy would be one of the key elements of emotional intelligence.
Wow. And we'll analyze that more and everything later. You wrote the book, The 3 Dimensions of Emotions, Finding the Balance of Power, Heart and Mindfulness in All Your Relationships. When did you write the book?
About 30 years ago.
30 years ago. And when was it published?
About 3 months ago.
Really? You see, that's why I don't write books.
I've been thinking about this model since my first graduate program, my first master's. And I've been working on it. I wrote a book in between called Follow the Yellow Brick Road, How to Change for the Better When Life Gives You It Worse. And if we get to that, I'll tell you why, because the model I put in that book. But I've been thinking about this model for 3 decades.
Wow.
Wow, that is impressive.
And I've been working with it with clients, with businesses, and I wanted to write it down and get it down in a comprehensive way, and that's what this book is.
So this is a result of all the years of work that you've done and things like that. Okay, so, wow, I'm really curious about this and everything. So,
I am too.
You know, but that's why I want to build it up and everything. But so,
and it has great relevance. The first piece, the torture piece, which we'll get to hopefully.
Yes, we'll get to that. I mean, that was like, it's. Did you see the video? Did you see the clip?
I didn't.
Yeah, it's heartbreaking, man. I mean,
hearing about it's enough for me.
Cowering in the corner, and you know, it's just like fear
and that cruelty, right? How can human beings be so cruel?
Right.
Yeah,
so maybe we'll
exactly.
find out by reading your book and everything and discussing this. So that's very interesting. Dr. Sam Alibrando sitting with us this morning. Where are you originally from? Did you grow up here in L.A.?
New Jersey.
New Jersey.
Jersey boy.
I see. Wow.
Philadelphia.
Really?
Side. Yeah, New Jersey side of Philadelphia.
I see. What was your childhood like?
I grew up in a Italian American family.
Oh, really?
And it was
Wow.
lower class, and it was very colloquial.
Was it difficult being lower class?
It's kind of, sometimes you don't know what you don't know, right?
Exactly, as a child.
But there's always a feeling of, in the other neighborhood, right, down the street, the richer neighborhood with the bigger houses, and you were in the little houses.
Yeah, so you realize something's going on,
I
right?
agree with that because he told me he was Italian, and my mom is Italian, and my mom grew up in that same type of environment.
Really?
And then we made a great deal of money through grocery stores, like a lot of Italians did, right? And my mom moved us to Beverly. You know what I mean? She moved us on up, right?
Wow.
But my mom was so ghetto, and I could tell between other people because my mama was so ghetto. She'd be like, "Let me tell you something, bro," and I could tell there was a big difference between my mother and other people. And it wasn't that it meant to be, but it's so true. So I think that you're right. My mom didn't know and doesn't know she has those tendencies, but yeah, it's true. I think
It gets burnt into the
I think into the fabric. Yeah.
Do you have any siblings? Did you grow up with?
Yeah, I have.
sisters?
We had a very small family. I only had 3 siblings, so there were 4 of us.
That's a very small family for Italians.
I had
right, at the
30
time.
first cousins on each side.
Wow.
So I had 60 first cousins.
Oh my God! I could count mine on 1 or 2 hands. You know, I mean, my
no.
God. So, but this is good. I mean, did you like big families?
I love it.
Yeah.
To this day, I like going to people's houses and just sit down, and the whole event happens in the kitchen.
Right.
I love that. That it just feels like home.
It's true. Everything is around the food, right?
Right.
And you know, when I started noticing that when I was watching The Sopranos, you know, almost
It's
every
true.
scene is around food, you know. And I'm thinking it is true, you know, and especially in Mediterranean culture.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, you'll see that with Greeks and Turks and everything else. But it's very interesting, you know, around the table that you mentioned that. And I think people communicate that way and stuff. So I think it's a nice thing. You know, I often think it's not cool that families don't eat together anymore. You know?
I feel like the reason I have really good or a really good sense of self is because I spend a lot of time with my family and I talk to them a lot. So we talked about a lot of vast things. You know what I
Right.
mean, I wasn't afraid to speak in my home.
Right.
And people weren't afraid to tell me when I was wrong.
Yeah.
And so it kind of makes you really prepared well for the world. So I think that was a beautiful thing.
So let me talk about this with the
Yes.
model. Okay, so there's 3.
Okay.
I call it 3 dimensions of relationship world. Right. There's 3 dimensions of the physical world: height and width and depth.
Right.
And based on a lot of research I've done, so if you want to learn about it, you can read the book. But you have to trust me. But there's, I call it the power dimension. This is the dimension that has to do with our own agency and how much we affect the world, our competition, winning, getting things done, protecting ourselves. Right, that's the power dimension. I call that red. 3 primary colors, right? Red, yellow, and blue. Well, the 3 primary ways we relate to others. And then the other is the heart dimension. And the heart dimension is the love dimension. It's the togetherness. It's the empathy. It's the It's the caring for other people and also our own needs for other people. And then the final is called the knowing dimension or the mindfulness dimension. Mm-hmm. This is the part of us that moves away and can observe things. It's the scientific part. Now, what we were just talking about, family, that has a lot to... the blue, the moving, the love, heart dimension, I give blue, and the other one I give yellow. The mindfulness dimension or the moving away dimension, I call that yellow. Mm-hmm. I like colors because people remember colors and you can blend the colors.
Primary, secondary, and tertiary.
There you go, you got it. But when we're talking about family, we're talking about blue. Blue is converging. You were saying earlier, why can't we all feel like we're one? Well, that's the blue part of us that wants to be one. That we're pack animals. We live together. We can't survive without each other, and we live in families, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
And the more competitive part of us is the red dimension, and that's the divergent. It's us versus them. It's me versus you, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Part of us, and each one of the dimensions can be positive.
Right.
There's something really important about our determination and wanting to get things done. And there's something good about love and empathy. And there's something good about stepping back and having self-control.
Right.
But when you were talking back about the torture, that was red going bad.
Really?
That's red without the other two. That's the whole key here.
That's true. No balance there.
There's no balance.
Right.
So they had no compassion for this kid, and they had no self-control. Right. They had no blue and they had no yellow. They were all negative red.
I just have a hypothesis based on the things that you've said to me on what you're with the dimensions of people. I often wonder, because I see my friends and I listen to their struggles. For some reason, my friends feel like they can talk to me about everything, and they usually do. And it's really nice to hear, and I don't mind it. But I learn a lot of their pain stems from when they're a child. And it's like they're adults, but they're just parading as one because they're really inner children. And I feel like if they deal with those things, that redness tends to dull down some.
Nice, yes, very much
so. And
so.
I feel like the empathy will increase some, but I feel like the more angry we see adults, it's just things, they've been angry for so long, they've learned that. And I feel like there's almost even like a chemical response in their brain too that would be, it's like their first response because you know what I mean? I feel like we have control over those things if we really master ourselves, starting first with us.
Yes, I have a lot of the book has to do with managing difficult people, and my first 3 principles of managing a difficult person. The first principle in managing a difficult person is manage yourself first.
Right.
Yeah.
The second principle is manage yourself first.
Right.
Can you want to guess what the third is?
Well,
manage
let's see.
yourself first.
I just feel like self-contrition and being honest with yourself about the terrible parts or the difficult parts or the painful parts or the things that people want to avoid, so they'll do other things to mask it, aiding in those red levels, and then it causes like those depression and problems that we see so often.
Now you're talking about my first book, which is the Wizard of Oz book, which the whole premise is that we don't grow as adults in Kansas, we only grow in Oz. And Oz is where we get tilted. So anytime we have a feeling or something, that's Oz. And most people, when they start to feel lonely or scared or empty or angry or whatever those emotions are, we often do something to get out of Oz. We try to get out of it. We'll drink. We'll smoke a joint. We'll work too much. We'll start a fight with our spouse. We'll do something to get rid of those feelings. Right. Instead of mindfully, there's the yellow, there's scarecrow in this case, right? Because scarecrow represents the yellow knowing. If we can go to that place where we can mindfully hold what we're feeling, not act it out, but just observe it, feel it, it's not going to kill you. I'll tell you, I tell people, I've never had anyone die from grief.
Right.
You feel it and you heal it.
Right.
But most of us don't do that. Most of us go into a reactive state. And we're going to react in one of 3 ways. We're going to be in a fight mode where we're going to get in, do this kind of crazy stuff.
Confrontation.
Or we're going to become doormats.
Right.
And acquiesce, which is the blue solution. Or we're going to detach, which is the unhealthy yellow.
Right.
Where you just kind of numb out and you go offline.
And see, I know myself as a person that I do all 3 of those, just depending on what the stimulus is.
Exactly.
Is how I react to it. But I call mine the porcupine reflex, where it's like I'm just feel like I'm protecting myself. So sometimes those harsh things come out because it's my reflex to step away. So it's like I can even imagine that I mix the two of pushing some away while hurting them, so that I know that I can because it's one of those things where you're trying to heal yourself and lick your own wounds, and sometimes they're there making it worse.
Yep.
So no, I can totally, I love it.
And I want to just make a note of a couple of things you said. One is, because I keep telling people this is not a personality theory.
Right.
This is a behavioral description. It describes how we behaviorally move.
Right.
And I'm different with my wife than I am with an alpha male. I have a couple of good friends who are actors and they're very powerful, and I kind of get almost acquiescing around them.
Right.
I go into the negative blue place, and with my wife I'll go into another space. We'll be different with our kids than we will be with our boss.
Right.
If people are interested, there's on my website for the book, they could take a free assessment. I don't know if that's okay to say this.
That's
why
really
not?
It's interesting,
Give
to
the
find
website.
out. Yeah.
Here's the website. The website's www, right? And then power-heart-mindfulness.com. So
that's perfect.
Power, just like the subtitle, power-heart-mindfulness.com.
We'll have to get that
Sounds
and
good.
post it with the picture as well that we put on our social media so they can get to it easier.
Yeah, that's cool. But so you get to take an assessment test sort of thing. And, it tells
when you
what.
take the assessment, you have to specify it's regarding who, because we're going to be different in different situations.
That's true, absolutely. Now, when you talk about difficult people, what do you mean by difficult?
That's a great question.
I mean, it's a perspective thing, right? I mean, if he's not agreeable to me, he's difficult.
Yeah, well, we're in the same page here.
Right.
When I do workshops and stuff, I'll ask people, is 50 degrees hot or cold? You tell me, is 50 degrees hot or cold?
It depends.
It depends.
Right.
If you're in Chicago in February, it's a heat wave.
Right.
And if you're in LA in July, it's
cold.
It's freezing, right?
Right.
What's a difficult person? A difficult person is anyone who makes me into a difficult person.
Exactly,
Absolutely.
right? Yeah.
Absolutely.
And you were talking about anger and stuff. Anger, when you break it down, is when you're not happy that things are not going your way, right? That's what anger is. It's like, this is happening in a certain way. I don't believe it should happen this way. I believe it should happen another way. And I think that's what leads to anger.
I work in a clinical setting, I work with people who have a really hard time with anger. They don't do the red very well. And because they don't do red very well, they're going to be detached, yellow, or they're going to be, kind of codependent blue or green, if you may, right? And one of the things I do is I go, let's go back to the first time you ever were angry. And that was when you screamed after you were delivered.
Yeah, right?
And that's because we didn't like it. So that your statement is brilliant.
Thank you.
That our anger comes from things we don't like. And so for people who don't have a hard time with anger, I help them say, what do you like about that? And what don't you like about that?
Right.
And that begins to help them get in touch with
Exactly.
is really a necessary emotion. We need anger.
That's true,
No,
right?
it's so true. You have to have the yin and yang of life. Happiness and anger have to coexist because you wouldn't appreciate one without the other. But my thing is that I am somebody who doesn't deal well with the red. And I know that about myself. Like, I've dealt with that. And the reason is because I get angry immediately, and I grew up with an Italian mother, like I said.
And what was the other part of it?
And Native American.
And?
So it's like, and Greek.
Greek. Well, there you're doomed.
So I was. So I know that. So I'm the type person that I found the best technique for me. The only thing that works is me walking away, moving past the anger, accepting what's happened, and then figuring out why it hurts me, and then going and communicating why it hurts me.
Okay. Can I now use my model to describe what you just said?
Sure.
So you'll react in red.
Yes.
That's your knee jerk. That's your limbic. Limbic,
Right.
the emotional
And
brain
I'll hold
reaction.
it.
Okay.
Right.
Red. So the beauty of the model is it's not what you're doing that's negative. It's what you're not doing that's positive.
I see.
So what you just said, what you have to, the coping mechanism you learned, and it's a good one, is you learned how to go to scarecrow. You learned how to go into the yellow. You learned to go into the mindfulness.
Right.
You step back. You think, I just stepped back from the mic.
Yeah.
You step back, you think about it, you feel it, and then when you connect with it,
Right.
you can go back in a regulated way and talk to them.
Because I just don't want to, the person I love, I don't want to yell at them and hurt them, and I know I'm capable of that. And I know I'm really, like Linda Blair, good at it. You know what I mean? And I don't want to be that kind of person to a person that I love, because you can't take those things back, and you don't need to make a person
That's true.
worse, too, if you're struggling. And the thing is is like, for me, if I walk away and I can logically look at it and take the emotion out of it and then give that communication to that person, that's the best thing I can give to him. But I find that if I don't get that time and a person follows me and pushes me, I stay in the red, and then I begin to, once I do calm down and they think, oh, she's calmed down, it's great, it's wonderful. But no, then I begin to detach because I learn that behavior, that's a pattern with them, that they won't address it with me. They're going to make me feel bad about it, and I start to detach
So when
slowly.
red doesn't work anymore, you go into yellow reaction, which is detaching.
If I don't get a chance to get to blue, then eventually that red stays there so long, and there's so much built up that I have to just detach because it's not healthy for me.
Yep.
Right.
Yes,
I have
exactly.
to continue to grow as a person because I'm still not done yet,
Right.
and I don't want to regress with someone. I want to progress.
Unlike
with someone.
Sam and I, we're both done.
Now, let me ask you this though: how does it help us understand ourselves better when you put things into these dimensions, into these colors?
We as if what happens with your daughter, right? When they're, let's say how old is your daughter?
I have two. I have a 5-year-old and a 6-year-old.
Okay, so your 5 or 6-year-old
Right.
Gets snubbed by one of the neighbor girls, and they call her a poopy head or something. And what do? As a parent, a good parent will say, a good parent's going to go, oh, that's awful. I hate that when people say that.
No, I can't say that to her because I'm afraid that if I say that I hate that, then I lean down with her and I ask her how it makes her feel. I want to know what her feelings are.
But my whole point is that early on we give our kids words for feelings.
That's true.
It's very interesting. At the age of 3 or 4, we learn how to control our bowels and we learn how to control our emotions at the same time.
Right.
Wow.
That's when the brain is starting to get into a place where it can start to regulate itself. And one of the key ways we do that is by giving words. Words, when I can use a word, I can contain my emotions better.
Right.
Oh, I'm sad. Oh, okay, I'm mad. Oh, okay.
Right.
And what this model does is it gives us words to describe what we're doing, and then it becomes a roadmap. So you go, oh, I'm negative red. I'm reacting red.
Right.
Well, then the way what I call working the triangle, you go, I either need to do some healthy yellow right now, or some healthy blue, or some combination of both. And when I do that, I will then bring myself in the balance, like you said.
Right.
No,
And that's what you described. You go into the yellow, you think about what you're feeling, you calm down, and then you can go back in a more balanced, integrated way.
And at that age right now, with having children that are at that age, and what you're describing, I totally agree. Because what I do is my mom, what I didn't like was I felt like she told me how I felt a lot of times growing up. So what I do now is I ask them, because I know they know the words hate, sad, happy. I say, how does it make you feel? Because they're at the 5 and 6-year-old age.
Yeah.
I want them to express their feelings. So that
and the tricky thing is they need us sometimes to label the word, at least initially.
Right.
But we can do that awful thing that parents can do. We project. We think what we think, we project onto them, and then they get all. I like the idea of sometimes giving them a choice.
Right.
Is that making you feel sad or mad?
Oh, nice.
Yeah, helping them understand the words and the meaning and so forth. That's pretty cool. Yeah.
Because I feel like the hardest part of parenting is teaching your child how to navigate this whole system you're talking about. It's because you want them to be emotionally intelligent when they get older.
Emotionally intelligent. The research is very clear. Emotionally intelligent people are the most successful people.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So our guest is Dr. Sam Alibrando. The book is The 3 Dimensions of Emotions. And you have a website. Give the website again.
www. Power.
It's not necessary to put the W's anymore. Let me just make
not.
life.
Okay.
I'll make life simpler for you.
Very good.
Go ahead.
Power -heart-mindfulness.
Very easy.
.com.
And you're going to get all kinds of, you have an assessment there and get all kinds of information and stuff, which sounds really cool. I wanted to go back a little bit, though, to you. And so what made you leave New Jersey? What got you out of there?
Grad school.
Where did you go?
I went to grad school. It was in near Chicago. So I got to live in Chicago for 5 or 6 years.
Oh, I see. Did you like that?
It was a great city. It's a great city, and it's colder than a you-know-what.
Right.
Which is you-know-what. For all my J.D. Salinger fans out there.
So we're complaining about nothing here, right?
Gosh.
It reaches 52. I'm like freezing.
So, and then I came out here for my doctorate.
I see. Okay.
And I ended up going to living in Pasadena because I did my internship. Fuller is a very world internationally renowned seminary, but they also have a school of psychology, and I ran their outpatient clinics for a while.
Wow, very interesting.
And that's how I got interested in organizational consulting.
And how did you get into psychology in the first place? What attracted you to it?
It was inevitable.
Really?
Yeah.
So you were just like into the mind, into behavior from the beginning.
I initially wanted to be a priest.
Really?
Until puberty.
Really?
And that was the end of that.
That makes sense. I was like, really?
So what are you going to do? I can't be a priest.
Exactly. I discovered girls. There you go. Wow. So, so Chicago, and then you moved here to do your master's or your
my doctorate here.
Your doctorate here,
and then to Pasadena.
But why did you choose L.A. of all places?
Well, it's interesting because when I was in Chicago, I got accepted at Temple, which would have brought me back home.
Okay.
I got accepted at Northwestern, which would have kept me right where I was.
Right.
And I got accepted at this place called Rosemead, and it was go west, young man.
Really?
Yeah. There's an explorer in me. I think I have part gypsy in me.
That's okay. I think that everyone here does, which is what we all appreciate about one another.
And that really, I think, forms in some ways
pattern.
the culture here. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's really cool. And I love that people come from all over the place, you know?
I know.
Every corner of the world, people come here.
I've met so many ethnicities.
My daughter just moved from Portland back to L.A. And Portland's like cool, right? Isn't that the place where you want to be when you're young?
Absolutely.
And she says, I love L.A. She goes, because I see people who aren't white here. Everyone's white in Portland.
Yeah, it's
and
so true.
I love the diversity here.
Well, yeah. No, it's true. And people bring different cultures and different ideas and different, creativity.
Yeah.
I think it's great, and when people wonder where's the best place to live, I always say, well, look where everybody's moving to,
Absolutely.
And this is where everybody's coming.
And what I love about LA is it has such a diverse communities, niche communities, because I love art. So it's like not only do I get to learn about new different people, but I get to learn about their art and their culture as well. So it's so beautiful because it's like you get an understanding and you get to taste the food, meet the people. It's almost like living in little different portions of Europe sometimes.
Yeah, like you get to travel,
Yeah, because there's a high population of Irish and Catholics and Italians and back home, and that, can you think of any others?
You mentioned art. I have a friend whose daughter is an artist, and she went to some of the best schools in Europe for art.
Oh, amazing.
And the vibe, the word is LA is the place now.
Really?
LA is the place for art. It's
really and truly it is. Like those are the best events to go to. Like those are the only times I show up. Yeah.
Why wouldn't it be? Because it's a city of creative people, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So tell people how they can, if they want to. So how can a company benefit from your services? What would you do if you came in and you had a big company and they had what is it? Why do they usually call you?
Right now, I'm using it one of two ways. I have a workshop on emotional intelligence for businesses.
Okay.
So they take the assessment for work in the context of work, and then I have them go through a whole day workshop on finding out where they need to work, what they need to work on, what dimension do they need to work on to bring themselves to the next level of emotional intelligence. So I have a off-the-shelf workshop. And then I also use it for executive coaching in terms of as a way, along with other things. It's not the only model I use.
Right.
But I'll use it to help them see, okay, when your employee showed up late again, you just checked out. You moved away. You dissociated. Right. What do you need to do instead? What red thing you may have to do, or maybe some blue thing you may have to do. You may have to be empathizing with their kid is sick or whatever, but helping them engage in that case.
Absolutely.
So I use it that way as well for executive coaching.
Sounds very good. I mean, the thing is that I can really see where a company would need to educate its people, because not everybody's into like self-help and all that, but
absolutely.
Bottom line is, if the people function okay, then the company does well.
Study after study shows that.
Oh, absolutely. And I think the way that you speak is not very like Dr. Phil and ominous. You're very understanding. It's very easy to understand your model. I think people can relate to it. And I think that most people want to learn about themselves but don't know where to start.
Yep.
So it's like you're not a threatening person. So it feels very nice and easy to talk to you and speak with you. So I know that really helps with the success rate of what you're doing.
You're very, very empathic.
You're also a Gemini. No, I'm just kidding.
So you have a consulting firm. Tell us a little bit about your company.
Well, I work with I'm working with one company that I think has 5 employees, and I work with another company that's I think is the division. The company itself is about $8 billion, and the division I'm in is about $1 billion. So I the whole range, because people are people,
right?
And industries, you need to learn about their industry, but but the people are still people,
right? Right.
And so we do work a lot with teams, executive teams, because most companies now are driven by teams. It's no longer the John Wayne, follow me, one leader, the Leah Pelka.
Right.
It's more being run, and so the chief person is very often the facilitator of the team.
Right.
And teams are made up of people, and therefore you can run into problems if you don't understand each other and don't appreciate each other.
Absolutely.
It's the model. If you don't do the blue, where you understand and empathize and accept other people, and you don't do the red, where you can speak up for yourself, and you don't do the yellow, where you're measured and you're thoughtful.
Right. Exactly.
So we work with teams and helping them be more efficient. And we'll go in and do assessments, cultural assessments or other types of assessments, because most people won't tell anybody else the troubles they're having except at the water cooler with their peers. But they don't usually talk about So we go in and we do extensive interviews of everyone.
Really?
And they'll
so they
talk
sit in
to
teams
us.
And they talk about the problems?
Yeah,
really?
And they'll talk to us in a
People
way
they
that
work
they
with.
won't talk to upline. They're not going to tell their boss that you don't treat me very well, but they'll tell me that the boss doesn't treat me. And if 5 other people say the same thing, I can give that boss feedback. I go, you're going to be a lot more effective if you treat people better.
That's true.
That's
yeah.
really
So you
great,
come in
though.
as like the third party, and you're able to objectively look and see what's going on.
And if they hired me as an employee, that would end. I wouldn't.
If they hire you as an employee, they can just kill human resources entirely. You know what I mean? Like that. Think about that budget cut, guys. You know what I mean?
I don't feel like doing payroll. But
Yeah, I mean, no. They can just cut it, because then they'll learn how to coexist as people, and they won't need them anymore. You know what I mean?
Wow. So, and what's the name of your company?
It's I call it APC. I actually work for myself, and I also work for another company in Beverly Hills, and that's called the Impact Group.
Okay.
And mine is APC.
APC.
Alibrando Psychological Consulting.
Okay, and people can find more about that on your website as well, right? They can contact you and stuff there.
Yep.
And you on social media, do you find a need to be on there?
Yeah, you know what? I am now a crazy Twitter guy.
Really?
Nice.
I'm up to 3,000 plus followers, which is
I will
very
follow you
good.
today, so you can have 3,001 plus followers.
Dr. Sam Alibrando, final words. Is there anything else we didn't cover that you want to let us know about the 3 dimensions? The book, by the way, is The 3 Dimensions of Emotions, and you can get it. Can they get it only on the website, or do you have it?
It's Amazon and Barnes,
Cool.
and there are some retail stores that have it as well.
Yeah, except there's no retail stores left out there, right?
That is a
That's what
real.
we're talking
We
about.
just talked about that, didn't we?
Yeah.
It's terrible, and the thing is that you just go out there. You want to go to a bookstore. There's no bookstore.
Well,
There's
they
only
have the
one or two
Kindle for
left.
that, so it's like in the Nook
I know,
and stuff
but,
like that. So
but
it's
you know
like,
what? It's not the same. I mean,
it's
I
not.
have a
I
Kindle.
love turning pages and like dog
Right?
earing them
and being
having
able to
them
put
for
it on your
reference.
shelf when you're done.
Right,
I
and
mean,
for reference.
my bookshelves are full of books. What am I going to do with a Kindle, right? And that's one thing.
That's more of a
side-
gym
On the
part.
other side, though,
Yes.
in my little thing over here,
You can carry a lot of
I carry
books,
my
right?
whole library in there.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
there
I
you
have
go.
one, but I
so
also am
each
a-
one has its uses.
Right.
Exactly.
There you go. But if you want a book to sit back and enjoy, I think a real book is still there.
Like a
and-
fireplace kind of
I hope
situation.
so.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah. So that's why when I go to a retail bookstore, I still try to buy something there so they'll stay alive.
Well, I have a rule. I read it
Even
first
though
on my-
I get from Amazon.
I read on my Nook first. If I love the book, like The Count of Monte Cristo is one of my favorites, so I keep the classics. But like I'll buy it then, because
I see.
then I'll rebuy it saying I co-signed to this and I really believe in this and I want to put it in my shelf. It's so
That's
amazing
true,
that I want
yeah,
to
yeah.
visually have it. If I have a friend who's struggling, I can pass it on. That's
Yep.
just that Native
That's true.
American
So you
in
can
me.
do both. Who cares, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a use for
It's
everything.
a sample first.
Yeah, there you go. Also you do personal stuff. I mean, if people want to come learn the model one-on-one, do you do that as well?
Yeah, I do coaching.
Yeah?
It depends on the context. There
Okay.
may be more clinical, or it may be more life coaching, and and certainly business coaching. So.
Sounds very good.
And another thing, for in terms of having things in people's hands,
Uh-huh.
if they go to the same website, there's a graphic I call the relationship circle. And it's a really nice graphic showing the positives of all three and the negatives of all three.
I see.
And they can kind of use it to say, oh, yeah, I'm really being read right now. And then you look at the positive, should I be doing
Right.
this?
See,
or
that would be good if you have like a visual
Yeah, exactly.
representation
Yeah.
of
Right.
it.
It helps.
To see the different
That's why I call it a
extremes.
roadmap. It's like it
Right.
kind of tells you where you can go.
That's true, yeah. Like to see the extremes on each dimension.
So do we have a second?
Yeah.
So my wife is upset about something.
What is that?
I can't tell you that.
He's
Okay.
sorry. He's sorry. I promise.
And my first reaction is to be defensive.
Right.
As a male, I go into my red and I call it orange.
Right.
Right. And what's missing when I go into orange? What's missing? Blue. Empathy. Listening. And I'm starting to learn to listen to what she's feeling, reflect her feelings back. She feels understood, and the whole thing changes.
Exactly.
But my reaction is always to be defensive. I'm a male.
Right,
yeah, there you go.
absolutely.
There you go.
Absolutely.
So I think I learned a lot today.
I
So
learned
thank
so
you for
much.
coming in, Dr. Sam. And everybody go get the book, the website one more time. Go ahead. I don't
Power,
remember it.
no WW. Power
Right.
hyphen heart hyphen mindfulness.
There you go.
.com.
And you guys can't go wrong with that. Leah, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me,
for
Samsky.
joining me, of course. And Sam, all the best to you.
Thank you.
We wish you a lot of success. Any more books in you, do you think?
Not if I want to stay
Are
married.
you sitting on any that, like, since you were sitting on that one for 30 years, are you sitting on any that could
I'm actually
possibly-
sitting on a couple.
Okay, so it's fair.
Uh,
So maybe so then.
I like to write the 3 dimensions for parenting, the 3 dimensions for leadership. I would love to do that. And
it's like chicken soup for the soul, but like three-dimensionally.
Exactly. Yeah.
Nice.
Sounds good. If you can find the time, go ahead and do it.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. Thank you all for listening, and we'll see you tomorrow.
You're listening to Sam in the Morning with Tori, only on LA Talk Radio.